Is Ripple quietly becoming the crypto version of Amazon? Well, Ripple's CEO just came and said the quiet part out loud. Blockchain is in the process of revolutionizing global finance, and for Ripple, XRP is their North Star. And during today's episode, we're going to be breaking down some brand new clips out of Ripple's CEO where he lets the world know mass adoption hasn't happened yet, but it's on the horizon for XRP. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Good Evening Crypto, your favorite crypto news related channel. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button and subscribe as you're going to get an update every single day. 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to dive right into today's episode, but I would encourage everybody to stick around until the end of the show as we're going to take you through some allegedly leaked documents that show how Ripple's new business model could 100X Xrp. And what's really interesting about this is we're going to draw the correlation between the Amazon price chart in the late 90s and what the XRP price chart is doing today. But to kick off today's episode, we're going to get right into the information that came out earlier this morning as Ripple's CEO compared Ripple to Amazon. He stated, "We are an infrastructure company, not a crypto company, and soon everything will be running on blockchain." But we're going to waste no time here. This is what Ripple's CEO had to say earlier today.
Brad, with the integration on that topic, and even the larger theme of adoption of blockchain technology by TradFi and crypto-focused companies such as Ripple acquiring TradFi companies, right? It's kind of happening on both sides. Do you see over time that it won't necessarily be the crypto market and the TradFi market, that you have this convergence and it's just going to be the market because they're all going to be running on blockchain rails?
Tony, so first of all, I think this is an incredibly important question. And I'm going to make fun of my age a little bit here. I've been around the technology landscape for a long time. I moved to Silicon Valley in 1997 in the earliest days of the internet. And in those early days of the internet, we would call things an internet company. And, Amazon was an internet company. Yahoo was an internet company. And it's like, no. Actually, Amazon's just a commerce company. Yahoo is just a media company. And over time, we realized the internet is going to be pervasive in every company. And we're not going to have just internet companies. We're going to have companies that integrate these technologies. I believe the exact same thing is true around crypto and blockchain. And even, when I talk about Ripple, you'll rarely hear me refer to Ripple as a crypto or blockchain company. Instead, I think about it as we're an infrastructure company, almost a platform company around financial services. It happens to be we leverage crypto and blockchain to deliver those solutions better, cheaper, faster, stronger. But I don't think in the years ahead we'll talk about these companies as crypto first. And I think, frankly, companies who do that are going to miss the bigger opportunity.
So it's a very similar narrative to when Amazon initially launched as a bookstore, Johnny, but their success story stemmed from the storage of data and information. And I think Ripple is along that same journey when it comes to financial services. It starts off with cross-border payments, but the real end game is tokenizing the United States dollar and making that ubiquitous on the XRP ledger. It's exactly what Ripple is doing through the RLUSD stablecoin. But I know that there's thousands of investors out there who are wondering, how is this set to impact XRP? Well, that's what Brad addresses in this next clip.
Every single person in the XRP family, the XRP army, to know that XRP is the North Star for Ripple. It's our purpose. When we think about what we're doing on Ripple payments or Ripple Prime or Ripple Treasury or custody or RLUSD, this is all focused on how we can drive utility, trust, and velocity or liquidity around XRP and the XRP ledger. So, things like Ripple payments on the DEX with permissioned domains, Ripple Prime using XRP for collateral and lending, Ripple Treasury we kind of talked about, doing the enabled payments around XRP and RLUSD within Treasury management. These are all examples of where we are going to continue to make sure, as we think about Ripple as a platform company for financial infrastructure, that XRP is at the heartbeat of that.
And another way to think about this, Johnny, would be, what is the way that Ripple can become most successful? It is going to be the expansion of XRP. And why is that? They have 40 billion units of XRP on their balance sheet. And Brad goes on to predict that Ripple could become $1 trillion company someday later on in this interview. Well, they're valued at $50 billion right now. That means that Brad Garlinghouse is anticipating a 20x in the company Ripple between now and the year 2030. Well, that's where XRP really becomes more valuable as well. If Ripple has the intention of becoming $1 trillion company, they are going to need to see the XRP value on their balance sheet continue to expand. And through these products that they've created that add demand for the XRP token, whether it's holding RLUSD, as we're going to go through at the end of the episode, or just leveraging the XRP ledger, on-ramping and off-ramping United States dollar for cheaper, faster, better transactions, well, a small fee needs to be paid. And also, that value needs to travel across the ledger for a short period of time. So every single one of these use cases adds more demand and more volume to the XRP ledger. And that's what I think he means when he says at Ripple, XRP is our North Star. Because if Ripple's going to be the most successful blockchain company, they need XRP to be the most successful digital asset outside of the Bitcoin ecosystem.
And you know, Abs, that's absolutely right. When you think about it, the asset that's the most valuable to them is the one that helped them grow their company, and it was XRP. I mean, that's how they actually funded the company. So it makes sense that now if they had sold it all, maybe they'd be less, but they have 40 billion of them still. So you can see why it's at the center of their attention. Because think about this, Abs. If they become a national bank, which we know their approvals are in process, right? Your balance sheet now becomes the most important asset of your company. And the bigger the balance sheet, the more you can loan out, the more, more profit you can make, right? The bigger you are. Well, guess what's part of their balance sheet? 43 billion. Now, that 43 billion could be worth 10 cents if XRP goes down, or it could be worth 100 billion or 200 billion or even $1 trillion if XRP goes up. So obviously you can see the incentive. Anybody can figure that out. At the end of the day, they have massive incentivization to grow the XRP asset. So no surprise there. What they haven't done well is explain to people how, when they grow these other products, Ripple Prime, RLUSD, when they have not done a good job of explaining how that benefits XRP. If I could get Brad on the show, I literally would say, Brad, tell our people how that's the question that needs to be asked to Brad. So if anybody's out there and you're going to interview Brad, just ask him that question, would you please? But at the end of the day, getting back to the main message here, we're on the cusp of potentially something huge here. Of when you think of Amazon started out as a book company, but nobody realized at the end of the day, to become a book company, they had to create this massive data warehouse of understanding where all the books were to be able. And that's when they realized, oh shit, it's in the value, the data. The value is in data. So in this case, yes, they were called an internet company, but they weren't. All companies were internet companies. Same thing's happening today. We're not crypto companies. We're not blockchain companies. Every company is something different. Ripple is an infrastructure company. They are building the rails for all the back-end systems to operate. And so naturally, at the end of the day, XRP is going to have a place to play in that. That's why I don't care what the price is today, Abs. I'm holding XRP because I think the long-term run, because they're building infrastructure, and the infrastructure uses XRP in one way or other, whether it's a small fee or a burn rate, it's going to add value to the price in the long run.
And we know that if these big companies are going to end up using the RLUSD stablecoin or the XRP ledger, well, they're going to sit on a surplus of XRP in order to pay those fees and to have that burn rate applied for. But I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you believe this is a bull market in 2026, or are we kicking off a bear market here in the first quarter? Because Brad Garlinghouse said he's incredibly optimistic about what's ahead in 2026. And just last week at Davos, he stated he believes the crypto market will reach all-time highs this calendar year. Here's the new clip.
I'll say something I said earlier. I think we are still in early days. So I don't think we've seen massive adoption yet. We're kind of in an entrepreneurial journey. One of the things you kind of talk about is going from 0 to 1, and then 1 to 100, and then beyond. And I think 2025 we went from 0 to 1, and that's manifested by ETFs. It's manifested by, frankly, even the BlackRocks of the world. Larry Fink talking about the opportunity around tokenizing assets on blockchains is profound. It's still very early, but crypto isn't fringe anymore. It's being absorbed into capital markets, into treasury management, into prime brokerage. And I think institutions are no longer just exploring blockchain just for crypto exposure. It's for settlement efficiency, for cross-border liquidity. And when you underlay all of that with the improving picture around regulatory clarity, you add all those different pieces together. And honestly, Tony, it's a conundrum that you're seeing the crypto markets struggle over the last 3 or 4 months. I'm incredibly optimistic about what's ahead in 2026. I look forward to the reality I just talked through, catching up with the crypto markets and how crypto assets are priced.
Well, I know the XRP community is sick and tired of talking about real world developments that do not impact the XRP price chart. And that's what I want to get into for the next portion of today's episode, because the XRP price chart is approaching some very key ranges here. We just fell out of this falling wedge that we've been creating over the last year here for the XRP price chart. And what's really interesting is that if we are unable to reclaim this channel at about $1.40, Johnny, that could mean the XRP price chart is heading lower possibly to the lowest levels we've seen in several years. But for XRP community members, there is some light on the horizon. And that is with Ripple developing all these business models and creating real world demand for the XRP token, this could give the XRP price chart the boost that we've all been waiting for. Now, there are fresh claims circulating in the crypto market that suggest that leaked documents and institutional reports may point to a larger long-term role for XRP within Ripple's expanding global payments infrastructure. While the claims have not been officially verified, they are fueling debate about whether the company's new stablecoin and institutional strategy could increase the demand for XRP. And that's what we just broke down earlier, Johnny. Brad Garlinghouse has said time and time again, everything that Ripple is developing is built with the intention of increasing the volume and the utility of the XRP ledger. Well, that same concept applies to the RLUSD stablecoin. Ripple's planned RLUSD stablecoin is not designed to replace XRP, but to expand institutional adoption of the XRP ledger. Analysts referenced the discussion and suggested that RLUSD could be integrated into an institutional settlement and trading system, allowing banks and financial institutions to use the stablecoin while still relying on XRP as a bridge asset for cross-border liquidity. If this model is adopted, then institutions using RLUSD for settlements would still require XRP to move that value between different currencies and markets, increasing the demand for the XRP token over time. And that's not where it ends for Ripple's strategy when it comes to XRP, because institutional DeFi plans put XRP at the center of everything that Ripple is doing. And we covered a video earlier this week talking about permission domains. This is a VIP trading room for institutions built specifically on the XRP ledger. And that's what's being referenced in this article. Ripple has also outlined plans to build a compliance-focused, institutional, decentralized financial infrastructure on the XRP ledger. Now, in these plans, XRP is positioned as both a settlement asset and a bridge asset, meaning it can be utilized to finalize payments and connect different currencies during cross-border transactions. Ripple's CEO has repeatedly stated that XRP remains a center part of the company's long-term vision, even as Ripple expands into stablecoins and new payment technologies. And what me and Johnny, I think we tried to do during this episode is answer the question about why Ripple is so focused on XRP. It's not that they want to make XRP investors wealthy. It's that they want to make their own balance sheet wealthy. And the best way to do that is by increasing the value of the 40 billion tokens that they have sitting on their balance sheet today. And when the correlation comes in between Ripple and Amazon, Johnny, it's not just about the business models. You can also look at the Amazon price chart and compare that to XRP. I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you believe XRP will break its all-time high in the next calendar year? One's for yes, two's for no, because if we do, massive momentum is on the horizon. Now, what happened with Amazon? From 1999 all the way until 2009, the Amazon price chart traded below its all-time high. After finally breaking out in 2010, Johnny, this asset went from less than $5 to north of $25 over just the next couple of years. What we're seeing with the XRP price chart is an extremely similar structure. Now, the XRP price chart, this breakout would begin from these $2 ranges, but if the correlation is accurate, we could be looking at a double-digit XRP before the end of the Trump administration. And that's what I've been focused on for the GEC listeners. The short-term negative price sentiment is very disappointing for the investors that come into this market and they leave too early. For the long-term investors in this space, this is a great opportunity to double down on the assets that you understand and set yourself up for success when the bull market finally arises, like it did in 2017, like it did in 21, and quite frankly, like it did during November of 2024 after the election of Donald Trump. But tying all these stories together, we have Brad Garlinghouse saying at the center of Ripple is XRP, right? The entire business is centered around the success of this digital asset. You also have them developing new use cases for people to buy the XRP token, hold it on their balance sheet, use it for the RLUSD stablecoin, and this will lead to not only an increase in volume on the network, but an increase for demand in the XRP token so that people can leverage the XRP ledger going forward. Now, taking all this into consideration, the passing of the Clarity Act, the pro-crypto president, we are in a very unique situation as XRP investors where the price chart is once again misleading people to what's actually going on. What is actually happening by the books? Ripple is expanding their business model and the use of XRP more than we've ever seen before. What's happening in the price chart? We're watching a 50% regression over the last 6 months because this momentum is driven by Bitcoin. XRP has not had its decoupling event, but when it does, we can start talking about the 50, 100Xs that the XRP community has been waiting for. Johnny, what's your thoughts on all these new use cases facilitating more demand for XRP?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, for me, first of all, I'm excited about it. That's why I'm still here. That's why I'm buying. But, you know, Abs, I'm not surprised that the price is going down. I mean, listen, you got to understand that the regular retail investor, which is the one that's going to be driving most of this prices up, because remember, the big money, they're buying on the OTCs or on the dark pools. The reason why we're not seeing price action yet is they haven't gotten retail excited yet. So retail, you see it. They're running like rats off a ship right now. They're getting the hell out of this thing. And that's what you're witnessing. Now, here's the reason why. Two reasons. The smart money and the retail investor who is staying behind, like you and me and everybody in our chat, they understand the future value of this. They didn't get in it for a get-rich-quick scheme thing. And what you're seeing is you're seeing all them getting swapped out. So those guys are out. You got the new, you're going to have new money coming in eventually. But to me, that's really what, this is a mental part of the game right now, Abs. People don't realize what they're missing out on, just like I didn't. Dude, I'm right here. I did it. I had Amazon. I had $17, sold $27. I didn't know what I had, right? That's exactly what's happening to everybody now. They're selling right now at $1, $1.25, $1.10, right? They're getting out. And then, you know when they're going to buy back in? When it's 10, 20 bucks. Because they got burned, but they just don't understand. So anyway, I'm very, very happy to see them finding other use cases to add value. And here's the other thing, Abs. This is the most exciting part. You don't have a foundation on this thing. You have a company. They have fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders and the people who invest in them. I know they're private, but still to grow the company. So you don't think they're going to take more of that money that's sitting in the background and go buy more companies? You better believe. In fact, Brad even hinted at, if you listen to the interview, he did say there's some other things they're doing that I can't tell you about. They are going to continue. And you know why? Because they're well funded. I love where we are. I love where the price is at right now because it allows me to buy more for cheap. And I just think the future is bright. I know most retail can't see that because they want it. You know how they judge it, Abs? You know how retail judges the success of a product? By its price. And I've been saying this for years. What I've told you, don't judge it by the price. Judge it by the activity that's happening. Judge it by the adoption that you see happening in the background. And I see a ton of stuff happening right now in the back end by Ripple.
Well, in regards to the price chart, guys, there is a lot of positive momentum on the horizon. And what's really interesting is that when we look at the blood moons here, the last one is sequenced on the 3rd of March. And typically, this ends the bear market. And this is just the data that I'm presenting for you all. We will have no occurrence of another blood moon until December 31st, 2028. You can clearly see that the period without these natural phenomenons has so far been an environment for a bull market, while the last one marked the end of a bear market each time. Would align with my views, but still, this is pretty crazy. And you guys can see the lines on the screen that mark the blood moons and where the bear market ended versus where it started. And it appears we are coming to the end of that cycle as we speak once again. And what else did Brad Garlinghouse say in this speech that he gave this morning? He thinks the Clarity Act will get passed in 2026. To me, that's an indicator that I'm going to be looking for, Johnny. If the Clarity Act is signed into law, I wouldn't be surprised if this time it's not buy the rumor, sell the news. It's sell the rumor, buy the news for crypto assets. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you all in the next one. Good night. So if you're looking to implement the same strategies that we do here on Good Evening Crypto, I would encourage all of our listeners to click on the Merlin link below and sign up for ITrust Capital as well. Now, why are our listeners going to do this? By leveraging the Merlin application, you can create a profit plan for yourself so you know exactly where you're going to be exiting this market. But leveraging iTrust through a Roth IRA product, you can take advantage of tax-free crypto gains during this crypto bull market. So I would encourage everybody, click on the link down below, sign up for iTrust today, and take advantage of our $100 free sign-up bonus.